welcome to today's Wiener Börse Insights. Today I have something really special for you in stock. Because you know what? A few hours ago I attended a congress, the Game Changers Congress, and by chance on the panel I met Jim Rogers. And for those among you who don't know who Jim Rogers is, he is the one about whom it is said that he kissed awake the Vienna Stock Exchange in 1985. So Jim, tell me, how did it happen that one of the first world hedge fund managers became aware of the Vienna Stock Exchange?
Well, I hope I invested in places that other people didn't seem to bother with. And in about 83 or 84, I read that Vienna was going to try to develop its capital markets.
Yes.
Everybody was. Communism, socialism were fading badly, and everybody realized you had to have capital markets.
Really? Was that really already appearing on the horizon? That
Scandinavians
communism will fail?
Apparently, because the Scandinavians, for instance,
yes,
started giving incentives for people to invest in the stock market. But they realized they needed capital markets. Other countries were doing the same thing. The Germans started doing the same thing. And I read that Austria was going to do something to try to develop the stock market. I called up the head of Credito Stock in New York. I won't say his name, and I said,
interesting to hear that they maintained an office in New York at that time.
They had an office in New York. I called up and said, I would like to invest in the stock exchange in Vienna, and can I open an account with you? And he said, Mr. Rogers, we don't have a stock exchange in Austria. I hung up the phone as fast as I could and said to my secretary, get me to Vienna. If the head of the largest bank didn't even know, the largest bank branch, didn't know that you had a stock exchange, I knew this had to be exciting.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to hear and what a poor status the exchange was. So what you are saying is there were no order channels established at all.
Wait till the rest and it so happened, I was teaching at Columbia Business School, at the Columbia University Business School in New York at the time, and I heard that the finance minister was coming, Franz Faninsky, and I invited him to come to the class to speak. And he came, and I said to him, well, I hear that you're trying to develop capital markets. He said, yes, we don't know quite what to do yet or what we're going to do, but we do know we need to have capital markets. So I said, okay. So I went to Vienna, called up the stock exchange. There were 22 companies listed, I think, at the time. There was virtually no trading. The head of Credito Stock, I went to see the stock guy. There was no activity, so the head at Credito Stock, the head of the stock market trading, was a guy, didn't even have a secretary, and there was just a low clerk's job. And he took me to the floor of the stock exchange with very little trading taking place. But I went to see the government, and they told me we're going to try to give incentives for people to list and for people to invest.
And can you remember what the nature of the issues already listed on the exchange was at that point in time?
One was called Wienerberger.
Wienerberger, one of our most incumbent issues, one of our oldest, still in operation, and one of our most prominent ones. Last but not least, Jim, the CEO of Wienerberger, heads our supervisory board nowadays.
Well, it was the name was such a great name, but it was also a big stock then. One of the bigger. But you have to remember, there was nothing happening here. Nothing happening.
There was no electronic trading established. It was floor trading in its most original sense.
You had to guys sat around. There were very few orders. They just if they came to work.
Have you a certain recollection about the volume that was traded these days?
to the floor. The guy from Creighton Stock took me to the floor of the exchange, said hello to people. There was nothing happening. And I wound up putting in orders to the government. They said, yes, we're going to give these incentives. And I wound up bought shares in every company that was traded. Not much, but bought shares. And then about sometime later, in America at the time, there was a magazine, still is a magazine called Barron's, which is a very, very, very prominent, probably the most prominent then financial magazine. And they had a year-end roundtable of people to talk about things. And I went, and I was on it for some reason. I don't know why they asked me, but I started talking about the German stock exchange, but it was undeveloped. And I could see great possibilities. And I said, but if you really want to invest in Germany, you should invest in Vienna.
Or the German-speaking world, so to say.
Yeah, well, some people still remember. And so I said, and I started explaining why Vienna. It was very few stocks, but the government was giving these incentives, and it was going to be a very exciting.
And how did you then organize the access to this market?
No, when I came here, I opened an account with Credit with a guy.
And was that the foreign investors trading through you, using you as the introducing broker to the market?
No, I was just a customer.
Yes.
I was nothing more than a simple customer.
Okay.
I went to Credit and Stock, opened an account, and bought shares.
Okay.
And when I was on the Barron's thing, the publicity, I was just, the guys they were supposedly smart guys, and we were talking about good ideas.
Yeah.
And I was just supposedly a smart guy. And I said, and Vienna is really the best place, and I told all the reasons. Cheaper than Germany, better than Germany, all the things that Germany has, Vienna has better. Barron's comes out and said, the guy, remember I told you about the guy who was a clerk at Credit and Stock? He didn't even come to work. He didn't know about any of this. He came to work late when he wanted, didn't have a secretary. He got to work on Monday morning, and on his desk it was covered with messages from all over the world. Buy me shares, buy me shares. He didn't know what was going on. This is, I have to remember, this is a backwater. He's just a clerk. He's just he's the head of the stock market, but the stock market is left. So all over his desk were these phone messages. Call me, buy me shares, and the Vienna Stock Exchange that year went up 100%. 100%.
But Jim, sorry for interrupting you, but beyond your idea of taking part in this idea of a government developing its market, did you actually look into the actual value of the companies listed? I mean, did this attention to
Christoph, everything was dirt cheap. Even if I looked at it and it was expensive, that meant it sold at 5 times earnings. There was no such thing as overvaluation. There was no such thing as too expensive.
And why did the neighboring investors, like the far more developed markets in Germany, the far more developed banks in Italy, and France, why did they overlook this development?
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Who knows why? It was this. If I found out, anybody could have found out. I didn't have some secret guy calling me up, telling me exclusive information.
And how long did it then take to establish what we on the exchange call the equilibrium? So the point in the pricing where supply actually meets demand on an equilibrium. How long did it take?
I'm going to get to that. A year or two later, the government invited me to come and speak. And the stock exchange. I came and I spoke and explained why Austria was great, valuations were cheap, and we weren't all the things that a person, an investor, would do. Explained about the Austrian economy, the reds and the blacks, and the whole thing. I talked about why Austria was now a good place to invest, and that the market was not finished. It was going to go on for a while. And someone else invited me too. I remember they invited me to speak, and I said to them, okay, I'll come, but what I want to do is I want motorcycle. Not from my girlfriend. From my girlfriend.
Which from an American perspective is close by.
It's
just 4 hours motorbike ride.
It is. Anyway, so I came to smoke. And then I was going around, in 1980, I was going around the world with my motorcycle, my girlfriend and I. We spent 2 years going around the world. But Austria knew I was coming through. And so they had a special gathering for me to come and speak about the Austrian Stock Exchange. But whatever it was, they sold out. And they had to get another hall because it was so sold out. So here I am. I come to Austria and I make my speech and I say, okay guys, this is finished now.
And when was this? Can you remember the date?
1990, almost exactly March. I mean, I was traveling around the world, so let's see, I left, it would have been the spring of 1980. And I looked at this mob. I said, it's finished now.
Yeah.
You know, you've had a great 3 or 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Stocks went up a lot. It's discovered. You look here, this place is sold out. Had to get another building. And I remember some guy raised his hand and said, what? We came here to buy stocks. We've been buying stocks. You can't tell us to sell.
And what was your advice then? What was your advice then to them?
I said,
there's a rule.
I'm telling I'm selling my shares and you should sell your shares in Austria because it's going to go down for a while.
Okay.
We've had a great one.
And what was the impact of this announcement? That Jim Rogers is going to sell his shares?
There were some other fundamental reasons too, not just that it going up. Something else was happening. Anyway, I explained why I was going up a lot, but there was something else that happened. There was fury, anger in the room because they thought I was coming there, it was going to boost the stock market again, and it was going to skyrocket again. So my girlfriend and I got on our motorcycles and got out of town as fast as we could. And sure enough, the stock market went down for a while.
And can you remember the effect it had on the ADX? Well, the ADX was not in existence at that point in time, but I assume there was a kind of national index. And what was the impact?
49 years ago.
Okay.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. And I was going around the world.
And having in mind that you escaped the country, you're using the motorbike to escape to Prague.
Well, we were going around the world on motorcycles. We weren't sold Austria. Sitting around watching the Austrian stock market every day.
But let us turn back to this 3-year period before you made that announcement that you should sell your Austrian stocks. So the moment from where you shed light on the Austrian market till this announcement in 1988, 1989. 1990. So
spring
actually half the decade of a roaring and soaring stock market. And can you remember a development of the infrastructure in this late 80s? Can you remember plenty of floatings arriving to the market? Can you remember a certain,
I can remember the active trading, stocks went up, people were opening accounts, the number of stock market accounts opened dramatically because they gave these incentives, but nobody talked about them until I came along. And people saw, oh my God, it's real. People started opening.
Can you remember the proportion, the domestic participation and the international influence? Can you remember the contribution?
Christoph, I wish I were that smart. You're talking about 30 years ago. Of course I know.
I'm sorry, as I'm an infrastructure provider, I'm more than keen to listen to
but
these.
I have been investing in many markets around the world. Austria was not my only stock market in those days. Invested in other countries, some of which were new and unknown. Portugal, I remember Portugal at that time. So I'm sorry, I don't remember. You can probably look it up.
What was the market of your interest then after?
Oh wait, I have to just one thing. And I remember in the Barron's Roundtable, it's called the Barron's Roundtable, one of the companies I mentioned was Wienerberger. They asked me for names, and I remember specifically I named Wienerberger, which everybody thought was a great life, because it was a wonderful name. In America in the 80s, the name Wienerberger was great. I explained it was a great company. So that was one, and I think I
because in the early 2000s, Austria saw a second round of privatization. Large infrastructural providers like telecommunication, oil, transport, all the usual suspects that you usually privatize to kickstart a market. That always floated, and I assume they called you at that time to comment on it or to even promote it.
I did meet the chancellor once because the problem was the pension plan.
Mm-hmm.
The pensions didn't have enough money,
mm-hmm.
and they realized that if they developed the stock market
mm-hmm.
and got the stock market up,
mm-hmm.
that would help with the pension problem.
Mm-hmm.
Many pension plans were underwater in Austria, and that was the chancellor who we were having this discussion. So yes, I do remember that particular period around, but I wish I was as smart as you think I am. I wish I could remember a lot of it.
And how much are you still interested in the Austrian
I
market?
have no investments in Austria now. I think that's an accurate statement. I do still have.
Not even as an integral part of your European investments?
Well, part of the problem is I'm not investing a lot in Europe for a variety of reasons, one of which is the euro, one of which is what's going on here. So I don't, and the debt, I mean, even Germany has a lot of debt now. There are German cities that essentially are underwater now. So I'm not investing a lot in Europe right now, but since you and I are having this conversation, I'm going to look at Austria again.
I
see what's what. I'm not telling you why.
You know, I'm an infrastructure provider, so it's not up to me to advise people on their investments, but I have to say, please have a look at the Austrian issuers. Most of them are market leaders in their particular niche, and with actually, significantly larger growth in Austria. Last year we saw 2.4 up to 2.6% of growth in GDP compared to the Eurozone overall growth. That's quite a significant delta. The Eurozone only grew by 1.8%. The Austrian companies still have great exposure to Eastern Europe, which maintains growth twice the size of what we see in Western Europe. So the Austrian investment story is still alive, I think.
Now that you mention that, I do remember I was invited here by, I think it was an insurance company, I won't say the name, to speak. And it was when Eastern Europe, Central Europe was just opening up, and there was a lot of interest in Austria because of that. And I explained to them, this is all going to fall apart. It's not going to work because there's exuberance about Central Europe, which is not going to work. Now, then it went down, as you may know, but now this was years ago. The initial exuberance, I was skeptical of. I came here and said, I wouldn't buy Austria because of this. Austria did go down for a while, but now that exuberance.
We outperformed all the Western markets by far.
I'm going to look. I'm going to look. It's my own
Very good, very good.
It's my
and
own
when it comes to the faith of the European Union, our currency, I'm much more optimistic than you are. But anyhow, have you any advice for me as being the active CEO of the Vienna Stock Exchange? What would you say? What I should take particularly care of?
Well, I'm sure you're doing. I would first of all, everything will be electronic in the future, but I don't have to tell you that we're already doing it. You know, there are very few floors, stock exchange floors anymore. When I used to go around the world, I would go and visit the stock exchanges. There's nothing to visit anymore. They're all computers now. It's on. So you're already doing that, as you well know. But I would basically try to get as many listings as possible.
Absolutely.
And it's easy because it's electronic now. And I think you have government support, but if you don't, get as much government support as you can for tax incentives and everything else.
Without a domestic investor basis, it's almost impossible to develop a national exchange.
That's not work. You have to have the local investors. One of the things I've learned about investing is when the foreigners come to a market, it's time to get out. They're the last to know. So you have to have the domestic. And people, markets make highs, get exuberant, etc. And I have learned, then they go down. And people always blame on the foreigners, but it's always the locals who sell first. The locals know this is crazy. They start dumping their own stocks. Then the poor foreigners, finally, who came in late, can get out late. So don't blame it on the attract the locals as much as you can.
Jimmy, thank you very much. It was more than fun talking to you, and thank you particularly for spontaneously willing to visit us. That was so great. Thank you so much. Take care. We wish you all the best, and feel yourself invited to this exchange at any time.